As of this morning, Prince Henry of Wales, the younger son of Prince Charles, fifth in line for the throne of the United Kingdom, is getting married to American actress Meghan Markle.
You think you know the Harry and Meghan story? The runaway prince, the Hollywood actress, the fairy tale escape from royal duty. But what if I told you the real story is darker, more twisted, and far more tragic than anyone realized? Because right now, Prince Harry is living a nightmare he can't even name, and the woman the world called his savior might actually be his greatest torment. This isn't speculation. This isn't gossip. This is about a man who traded one prison for another and didn't realize it until the door locked behind him. Look at Prince Harry in 2015, the cheeky ginger prince who showed up to events in jeans, cracked jokes with veterans, and made the entire royal family look human. He was magnetic, flawed, sure, but real, the kind of guy you'd want to grab a pint with. Now look at him today. The light in his eyes is gone. His posture screams exhaustion. He speaks in rehearsed sound bites that feel hollow, almost robotic. This isn't the natural evolution of a man growing up. This is something else entirely, something calculated. Friends who knew the old Harry say they don't recognize him anymore. One former military buddy admitted in a private conversation that talking to Harry now feels like talking to a stranger reading from a script. The spontaneity, the humor, the raw honesty that made him beloved worldwide has been systematically erased. And it didn't happen by accident. Let's rewind to 2016. Harry meets Meghan Markle on a blind date arranged through mutual friends. The story they tell is romantic, serendipitous, fate bringing two souls together. But people close to the situation tell a different story. Meghan had been circling royal social circles for months before that date. The Soho House connections, the strategic friendships with people in Harry's orbit, the calculated Instagram posts that seemed designed to catch his attention. One of her former acquaintances said Meghan used to joke about marrying a prince, not falling in love with one, marrying one. When they finally met, she played it perfectly. The humble American who knew nothing about royalty, who was just a normal girl looking for love. Please. This woman had studied the system like a PhD thesis. She knew exactly what buttons to push, what vulnerabilities to exploit, what words would pierce through Harry's defenses. And Harry, still grieving his mother, still searching for someone who understood his pain, didn't stand a chance. Here's where it gets chilling. Meghan didn't demand Harry cut people off. That would be too obvious. Instead, she planted seeds. Small comments that seemed caring but carried poison underneath.
Your arguments with your brother became physical.
It was a build-up of frustration, I think, on his part. I was defending my wife, and he was coming for my wife. It wasn't nice. It wasn't pleasant at all.
They don't really understand you, Harry. Your family can't relate to what we're building together. The people around you are stuck in the old ways. They'll hold you back. One by one, Harry's support system crumbled. His lifelong friends from the military stopped getting calls. The Invictus Games team, the people who helped him build something meaningful after leaving active duty, noticed he became distant, cold, unreachable. And then there was William.
I don't think that we can ever have peace with my family unless the truth is out there.
The bond between Harry and William was supposed to be unbreakable. They'd survived their mother's death together, weathered scandals together, supported each other through the impossible weight of royal life. But Meghan drove a wedge between them so smoothly that Harry didn't even realize it was happening. William tried to warn him. He asked Harry to slow down, to really think about what he was getting into. That single conversation, a brother looking out for a brother, was twisted into betrayal. Meghan allegedly told Harry that William was jealous, that he couldn't stand to see Harry happy.
But there needs to be conversations, and then in order for reconciliation, and part of that has to be accountability.
And just like that, the enemy was identified. January 2020. Harry and Meghan announced they're stepping back from royal duties. The media calls it Megxit. Harry calls it freedom. But freedom from what exactly? They moved to California, away from the protocol and scrutiny of royal life. No more stuffy traditions, no more invasive press, no more family drama. Just Harry, Meghan, and their new life in the sunshine. Except it wasn't freedom at all. In the palace, Harry had structure, purpose, and people who genuinely cared about him, beyond what he could offer them. In California, he has Meghan.
I'm sure overwhelming for these young women like Kate and Meghan until they wake up in the palace and look over at the prince on the pillow next to them, and then they feel better.
And Meghan's rules are far more restrictive than anything the Queen ever imposed. Every decision runs through her. Every public appearance is choreographed. Every word he speaks in interviews is carefully vetted. Harry traded the gilded cage of Buckingham Palace for the invisible chains of Meghan's control, and he's only starting to realize it now. Let's talk about the documentary. Harry and Meghan's 6-part Netflix series was supposed to be their truth, their side of the story finally told without filter or interference. But watching it felt less like a documentary and more like a PR campaign. Every scene was polished, every emotion felt manufactured. Harry's tears seemed real, but the narrative around them felt scripted. Meghan dominated every frame, steering conversations, redirecting focus, ensuring the story stayed on her terms. Harry barely got a word in edgewise.
Just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Critics noted that for a series about their love story, Harry seemed like a supporting character. Meghan directed the emotional beats, controlled the pacing, and made sure every revelation served her version of events. Harry wasn't telling his story. He was performing in hers, and the world ate it up, not realizing they were watching a masterclass in manipulation disguised as vulnerability. Then came Spare. Harry's memoir was supposed to be cathartic, a chance to finally speak his truth without royal constraints. But reading it felt strange. The tone was bitter, accusatory, filled with grievances that didn't quite sound like the Harry the world knew. The phrasing felt off. The way he described his family felt cruel in ways that contradicted years of public affection. And the villains in his story just happened to be the exact people who had questioned Meghan's influence. Insiders say Meghan was heavily involved in the writing process, not as an editor but as a guide, helping Harry understand his trauma, reframe his memories, see his experiences through her lens. Translation: she rewrote his past to fit her narrative. The saddest part? Harry probably doesn't even realize it. When you're deep in someone's psychological control, you genuinely believe the thoughts in your head are your own. You don't recognize the voice whispering in your ear until it's too late. Harry's memoir wasn't healing, it was a weapon. And Meghan made sure it was aimed at anyone who stood in her way. If you want to understand the real dynamic between Harry and Meghan, forget what they say, watch what they do. In every interview, every public appearance, every staged photo op, the pattern is identical. Meghan speaks, Harry listens. Meghan gestures, Harry nods. Meghan laughs, Harry follows a beat too late. Body language experts have analyzed their interactions dozens of times, and the conclusion is always the same. This isn't partnership, it's dominance. Watch Harry's eyes during interviews. They constantly flick toward Meghan, searching for approval, checking to see if his answer was correct. When she speaks, he freezes, hyper-focused on her words like a student afraid of failing a test. And when he does speak without her prompting, there's always a moment. A tiny pause where he glances at her, waiting for permission to continue. It's subtle, almost invisible, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's not love, that's conditioning. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you saw Harry with his old friends? The military buddies who served with him in Afghanistan? The childhood friends who knew him before the world made him a tabloid fixture? The Invictus veterans who looked up to him as a leader? All gone. People close to the situation say Meghan didn't ban them outright. She just made it uncomfortable. Subtle comments about how they didn't fit into their new life. Questions about whether these friendships were healthy or holding Harry back. Gentle suggestions that maybe it was time to move on from the past. One former friend described trying to reach Harry after the move to California. Calls went unanswered. Texts got vague, distant responses. And when they finally connected, Harry sounded different, guarded, like he was being monitored. That's textbook isolation. Cut off the support system, control the information flow, and make the victim believe they chose it themselves. Harry's not being held hostage in the traditional sense. He's being held hostage by the belief that this isolation is protection. Now let's talk about King Charles. Despite everything, despite the interviews and the book and the public attacks on the family, Charles still loves his son. He's heartbroken, confused, and reportedly desperate to repair the relationship. But every attempt at reconciliation gets blocked. Sources say Charles has reached out multiple times, offering private conversations, family meetings, anything to bridge the gap. But Meghan stands in the way. Not overtly. She doesn't forbid Harry from talking to his father. She just frames it in a way that makes reconciliation feel like betrayal. If you go back to them, you're choosing their dysfunction over our family. They'll never change, Harry. They'll just hurt you again. You're finally free. Don't let them pull you back into that toxic cycle. These aren't the words of a supportive wife. These are the words of someone who knows that if Harry reconnects with his family, the spell breaks, the control weakens, and her carefully constructed narrative falls apart. So Charles waits, and Harry remains distant, convinced he's standing up for himself when really, he's just standing alone. Here's what makes this situation so insidious. Meghan presents herself as a champion of mental health, authenticity, and breaking free from oppressive systems. She speaks eloquently about the importance of using your voice, standing in your truth, and not letting others control your narrative. But behind closed doors, she's doing the exact opposite to Harry. She silenced his authentic voice and replaced it with talking points. She isolated him from the support systems that kept him grounded. She rewrote his trauma to serve her agenda, all while claiming to be his liberator. That's the paradox. The woman who speaks publicly about empowerment is privately dismantling the man beside her, and the world applauds her for it because they're watching the performance, not the reality. Psychologists call this covert narcissism. The manipulation is so subtle, so wrapped in care and concern that the victim doesn't realize they're being controlled until their entire identity has been rewritten. Let's follow the money. Since leaving the royal family, Harry and Meghan have signed massive deals. Netflix, Spotify, book deals, speaking engagements. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. But who controls the finances? Reports suggest Meghan manages the business side of their empire. She negotiates the deals, approves the projects, decides how their brand gets leveraged. Harry's role is to show up, smile, and add royal credibility to whatever venture she's pursuing. He went from being a prince with his own charitable foundation and independent projects to being a supporting actor in someone else's business plan. The Invictus Games, the cause he built from nothing, now feels like an afterthought compared to the constant stream of media deals and public appearances. Financial control is one of the most effective tools of psychological manipulation. When someone manages the money, they manage the power. And Harry, who grew up with palace accountants handling everything, probably didn't see it coming. He's wealthy, yes, but he's not free. And there's a difference. The Oprah interview, the tell-all documentaries, the podcast appearances, every single one follows the same script. Meghan speaks, Harry agrees. Meghan cries, Harry comforts. Meghan sets the narrative, Harry nods along. But watch his face during those interviews. Really watch it. There are moments, brief flickers, where he looks uncomfortable, uncertain, like he's not sure if what he's saying is true anymore. In the Oprah interview, when Meghan made claims about the royal family's racism, Harry's expression was strange. Not angry, not vindicated, confused, like he was hearing the story for the first time himself. Body language analysts noted he displayed signs of cognitive dissonance. His words said one thing, but his body said another. That's what happens when you've been conditioned to believe a narrative that doesn't quite align with your lived experience. The tragedy is that Harry's trauma is real. His grief over losing his mother is real. His struggles with royal life are real. But Meghan has weaponized that pain, twisted it, and used it as justification for her own agenda. And Harry, desperate to be understood, desperate to be loved, desperate to honor his mother's memory, can't see that he's being used. Rumors are swirling that Harry is reaching a breaking point. Sources close to the couple say he's been distant lately, withdrawn. There are reports of arguments behind closed doors, moments where Harry questions the direction his life has taken. Friends who've managed to reach him say he sounds exhausted, emotionally drained, like a man who's been running on empty for years. The cracks are showing. At recent public events, Harry looks less like a participant and more like a hostage. His smiles don't reach his eyes, his body language is closed off. And when Meghan speaks, he doesn't just listen anymore, he shrinks. That's the look of a man who knows something is wrong but doesn't have the words to name it. Or worse, doesn't have the strength to confront it. The question isn't if Harry will wake up, it's when. And what will he do when he finally realizes the woman he thought saved him might actually be the one destroying him? There was a moment, brief and fragile, where reconciliation seemed possible. After Queen Elizabeth died, Harry returned to the UK. He and William walked together behind her coffin, a sight that broke hearts worldwide. For a few hours, it seemed like maybe, just maybe, the brothers could find their way back to each other, but it didn't last. Within days, Harry was back in California, and the distance returned. Sources say William tried to have a private conversation, a real one, away from the cameras and the drama. But Meghan reportedly called repeatedly during that window, checking in, making sure Harry stayed on message. The reconciliation died before it could begin. William has reportedly accepted that his brother is lost to him, at least for now. The grief Charles feels is profound, but William's is different. He didn't just lose a brother. He lost his best friend to someone who saw Harry not as a person, but as a project. Archie and Lilibet. Two innocent children born into a media circus they didn't ask for. Harry claims he left the royal family to protect his children from the same invasive press that tormented his mother. But what kind of protection is it when your children become pawns in a public relations war? Every birthday announcement is strategic. Every rare photo is calculated. The kids aren't just growing up, they're being curated. Their childhood's managed like a brand asset. And what happens when they grow older and start asking questions? What happens when Archie wants to know his grandfather, his uncle, his cousins? Will Meghan allow it? Or will she frame the royal family as the villains their children need to avoid? Harry's fear of losing his children to the same forces that took his mother is valid. But the cruel irony is that by isolating them completely, he's guaranteeing they'll grow up with their own scars, their own resentments, their own questions about why they were kept from half their family. Who is Prince Harry now? He's not a working royal anymore. He's not a soldier. He's not the cheeky rebel who made the monarchy relatable. He's a podcast host, a documentary subject, a professional victim sharing his trauma for Netflix checks. That's not an identity. That's a performance. And deep down, Harry has to know it. There are moments in interviews where he looks lost, like he's searching for the man he used to be and coming up empty. The confidence, the purpose, the joy that once defined him has been replaced with something hollow. Meghan promised him freedom, but freedom requires identity. It requires knowing who you are, separate from anyone else's expectations. And Harry doesn't know anymore. His sense of self has been so thoroughly rewritten that he's become whoever Meghan needs him to be in any given moment. That's not liberation. That's erasure. Meghan loves comparing herself to Princess Diana, the misunderstood woman fighting against an oppressive system, the modern royal who refused to play by outdated rules, the victim of a cruel media machine. But the comparison falls apart under scrutiny. Diana was genuinely beloved by the people she served. She showed up to hospitals, held hands with AIDS patients, walked through minefields to raise awareness. Her compassion wasn't a brand strategy, it was who she was. Meghan's public service feels transactional. Every appearance is photographed. Every charity event is leveraged for content. Every act of kindness is positioned to bolster her image. Diana fought the system from within, trying to reform it. Meghan burned the system down, took Harry with her, and built a new empire on the ashes. One was trying to make things better, the other is trying to make things profitable. And Harry, trapped between honoring his mother's memory and serving his wife's agenda, can't see the difference anymore. Before the wedding, several of Harry's closest friends tried to warn him, not because they disliked Meghan, but because they saw the red flags, the speed of the relationship, the way she isolated him, the sudden changes in his behavior. They approached him gently, carefully, trying to express concern without triggering defensiveness. Harry shut them down. He accused them of being unsupportive, of not understanding, of being stuck in old ways of thinking. One friend later admitted it was like talking to a stranger. The Harry they knew would have at least listened even if he disagreed. This Harry was defensive, hostile, completely closed off. Now, that's another classic sign of psychological control. When someone isolates you from your support system, they frame anyone who questions the relationship as the enemy. It's not that your friends are concerned, it's that they're jealous, toxic, holding you back. And once you believe that, you're completely alone with your captor. Despite claiming to hate media attention, Harry and Meghan have built an empire on it. Every few months, there's a new interview, a new documentary, a new revelation designed to keep them in headlines. They complain about invasive coverage while simultaneously courting it, controlling it, weaponizing it. The strategy is brilliant, honestly. Claim victimhood while actively seeking attention. Demand privacy while selling your story to the highest bidder. Criticize the press while using friendly outlets to push your narrative. And Harry, who genuinely was traumatized by the media's treatment of his mother, can't see that Meghan is using that trauma as a shield. Every criticism gets deflected with, "They did this to Diana too." Every question gets shut down with accusations of racism or misogyny. It's a perfect system. And Harry's pain is the key that makes it work. So, what happens now? There are 3 possible futures for Prince Harry. In the first, he stays exactly where he is. He continues performing in Meghan's story, growing older and more tired until the public loses interest and they fade into wealthy obscurity. In the second, he wakes up. He recognizes the control, seeks help, and begins the painful process of reclaiming his identity. This would mean confronting hard truths, possibly ending his marriage and rebuilding from scratch. It would be messy, public, and devastating. In the third, something breaks. The pressure becomes too much, the cognitive dissonance too strong, and Harry has a very public breakdown that forces the world to finally see what's been happening behind closed doors. None of these futures are happy. That's the tragedy. The man who had everything, who was loved by millions, who could have used his platform for genuine good, is trapped in a nightmare of his own making. Let's talk about what this has done to Harry mentally. He looks exhausted, not just physically, tired, but emotionally depleted. The spark that made him magnetic is gone, replaced by a weariness that's painful to watch. Mental health experts who've analyzed his recent appearances note signs of chronic stress. The weight loss, the tension in his jaw, the way he holds his body like he's bracing for impact. These aren't signs of a man living his best life. These are signs of someone barely holding it together. Harry has spoken openly about his mental health struggles, his therapy, his commitment to healing. But you can't heal in an environment that's actively damaging you. You can't recover from trauma while being controlled by someone who uses that trauma against you. The saddest irony of all? Harry left the royal family to protect his mental health. But his mental health has never looked worse. Here's what people don't want to admit. Meghan Markle isn't a cartoon villain. She's not twirling a mustache, cackling at Harry's pain. She probably genuinely believes she's helping him, saving him, loving him. But love shouldn't require you to lose yourself. Love shouldn't mean cutting off everyone who cares about you. Love shouldn't feel like a full-time performance where one misstep means emotional punishment. Harry is living in a version of reality where his captor is also his savior, where the person controlling him is the only one who truly understands him, where the woman dismantling his identity believes she's helping him find it. That's the most dangerous kind of control. Because when the victim finally wakes up, the grief isn't just about lost time or damaged relationships. It's about realizing the person you trusted most was the one hurting you all along. And that's a truth that might destroy Harry completely. The story of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle isn't a fairy tale. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when love becomes control, when freedom becomes isolation, and when a man's identity gets rewritten by someone who sees him as a project instead of a person. Will Harry wake up before it's too late? Will he reclaim the man he used to be? Or will he continue down this path until there's nothing left of the cheeky prince the world once adored? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this opened your eyes to what's really happening, hit that subscribe button, because the truth about Harry and Meghan is far from over.